Hello, it's Tristan here from Zebra Invest, and today I'm running through the art of a refinance, knowing your numbers and how to find solid comparables, ones that are relevant, recent, and similar. And today in this video, I'm going to run through a live example where we'll jump in and show you exactly how you can find them yourselves and how I find them to make sure that when it comes to refinance or even when I'm buying stuff at open market value, how I'm making sure that we're getting that property to value up at the right price. We're going to go and how to dig into them. We'll go through the easy way and we're going to go through the hard way. And the hard way is the free way. The easy way is paid. So at the very end, I'll give you a link to Property Filter and the discount code. So you can get half price of it and a 14-day free trial if you want to go right down that route and do that yourselves. And I'm going to show you how you can put these comparables together so you can put them in front of a valuer and they can understand and see that you understand and know what the value of that property is. The first thing I want to do is tell you what a comparable is. So a comparable is a similar property to the property that you're looking to refinance or you're looking to sell on if you're flipping. And the idea is you're looking for a property that's exactly the same or as close to as similar to yours as possible to be able to work out what that property is worth. So to give you an idea, if you were looking at, say, a one-bedroom flat that was in the centre of Norwich and it's got one bathroom, well, we're then going to be looking for other flats with one bedroom and one bathroom. But not only that, we're going to have to be looking at what that type of property is, because it could be a nice property in a refurbished building that was done in, say, the last 5-10 years, and it's in good condition. And in that case, we're going to look for other buildings of the same standard. But a comparable to that property might not be the same because, as we've all heard about Grenfell, for example, but some of those buildings might have cladding on the side of the building that needs pulling off, which means your property is actually only going to be suitable for cash buyers. So you have to think, is that one the same as that one? And then the other thing you're going to be thinking of, and this goes for any property, is looking at the size of that property. If the flat that you're looking at is, say, 39 square meters, well, that's going to be worth a little bit more than those properties that are, say, 30 square meters. And 30 square meters, for those who don't know, is the smallest size property can be to be able to get a mortgage on it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump into a live example. My friend Tom, he's just bought a property in the city. He's just picked it up at auction, and you can actually jump in and see some of his other videos and properties that he's done in my channel a few months ago. So let's head over. We'll have a look at his latest purchase, and then let's go through and see how we can get comparables for this terrace house. So Tom has just bought this beautiful property in Mile End Road in Norwich. You'll be able to find online what he's bought it for, but you can see it here. It's £280,000. It's a beautiful property in the centre of Norwich. When we just take a look over at Rightmove, you can take a look and jump in and find this yourself. But you'll see that it's a big old property in a nice little area. It's just on the cusp of what's called the Golden Triangle. And the reason that's interesting and useful is, you know, the Golden Triangle is an area where it's always going to sell quite well. And looking at it, it needs a bit of love and a bit of transformation. But what we're going to be looking for comparables really is looking at what the property is worth once it's done up and once it's sold. So the first thing I would look at these is going to be the size of the property. So what I'm going to do is just head over to Google, and then we're just going to look for the EPC register. And the reason I do this is quite a few estate agents don't actually show you how big the property is on their floor plan. They simply just don't say how big it is. Whereas with this property, we've got the address of it. So if we head over to the EPC register, you can jump in, click Start Now, and we can find the domestic property, pop in the postcode, and we know we're looking at 2A. Let's just find this one here. Hopefully it will be appearing. So it's got 2C. Oddly, it's not on here. So what I'll do is, usually I'll jump in, open those up, and then you can have a look at how big these properties are. So that's 2C. 2 is next door. It's 120 square meters. And then you can kind of get a gist for the idea of how big the properties are. So even on the smaller side, if it was 120 square meters, that's pretty decent sized property. So when you're looking at these properties to work out a comparable, you've got to have a think about what it's got that other properties might not have. So for example, in Norwich, a lot of houses don't have what's called a hall entrance. So where you step straight in. So this property's got a hall entrance. The other bit is this property has got a garage. And again, a lot of properties in Norwich don't have garages. If yours doesn't, you're going to need to be comparing it to other properties that do have garages. And then the other bit that's interesting with this property, it's on Mile End Road. And Mile End Road is actually quite a busy road. It's our inner ring road. So you have to think, it's like, okay, well, with this property, is this property going to be the same value or the same as another residential house that's not on the main road? So what we're going to do first of all with this is we've got to think about it. So we're going to look, we have got a three bedroom terrace house, probably around about 120 square meters, and it's got a garage. So ideally, when we're looking for a comparable property that's similar, we're looking for a property that's got exactly the same thing to it. So a lot of people, the first thing they do is take a look and head on to Rightmove and just go into the searches. So when you're looking at properties that are on market for sale, these can be quite useful, as it gives you a good idea of what the property prices are and what people are asking for them at the moment. But the downside of them is they're not going to be what's actually sold. So the first thing I've done here, just to give you an idea on the filters as we've opened it up, I've said 3 to 4 bedrooms, because at 120 square meters, quite a large 3-bedroom property. I've said that I only want to be looking at other types of property that are similar. So ideally, semi-detached or terrace, so I'll remove detached there. And then what I'm also going to do is include the properties that have sold. And you've got lots of other filters here, but let's just stick with these. So what you then do is you then start going a little bit further afield. And we're looking to try and find other properties that are exactly the same as this, and exactly the same and of similar style and similar size. So we've got another property here on Mile End Road at £895,000, but this is on the market for sale. And as you can see, it hasn't got a sale agreed and it's been added back in June, so it's taking some time to sell. We've got another one here. This is a semi-detached property here again, and that's another decent sized property. And you've got, again, here another one. So they're all quite expensive properties coming down here. But then we're trying to find something that's similar. And when you're looking at these, you've got other properties that are now larger properties that are set back from the road. This property wouldn't be the same. As you can see, it looks almost like it's ex-council or 1950s. It's just been built in a different way. And you kind of come back and here, look, we've got one on Christchurch Road, and that's, again, different, a different size and different style. So these are all 3-bedroom properties, but none of them are anywhere near the same as this property that we're looking at. So what you can then do is you then go a little bit further afield to say half a mile. And the idea is you want to try and keep your comparable properties, similar properties, as close as possible to your property, because that's why they're going to be the most relevant as possible. And you see, these ones aren't going to be similar at all. So let's go with the lowest price and we'll have a look and see come through. Lincoln Street is much smaller property. Newmarket Street there, you can see it's a much smaller property. These ones are much, much smaller than what he's looking at. So that's the one he's got that was advertised. And then you come down a little bit further, it's got a bay window. So we're looking for something with a bay window, 3 bedrooms, and a nice little garage. So I've gone through, I've opened up a few different ones. So look, so for example, this property would be quite similar, because you can see it's got the same style brick. This one is a semi-detached, whereas ours is a terrace. But you can see this property is actually another one that's just gone through auction. It's a similar size property, just a little bit smaller. It's got similar style layout to it. And it needs a whole load of work to refurbish it and turn it around. So I'd say that Tom's got quite a good purchase at £280,000. But the downside of this property is it does actually, it's a little bit different, but it's it also has a garage as well. But being comparable, you look at the two properties, and his previous property that we're looking at was actually on a busy road, and this one is set and nestled right in the heart of everything, and it's not going to be a property where it's probably worth a bit more because of its location, semi-detached, and it's got a garage. So that's okay for looking at the price at the moment. Now looking at Portland Street, this is another 3-bedroom property. It's a similar layout with a hall entrance, a little bit smaller, but they've got the loft converted here. So again, could be a good comparable, but it's a very different type of property. It's not better set back, and looking through it, I don't believe it's got off-road parking either. So the property is probably going to be worth a bit more than £400,000. And here again at Berry Street, we're again in another area on a nice little road. But again, it's going to be a property that doesn't have a garage. So you're then trying to kind of whittle through and think, okay, which ones are similar? This one here on Mile End Road is actually not probably too dissimilar in size or layout. It's got the garage and it's got a whole load more space inside. And this one's done to quite a nice standard at the end of it. It's got a decent sized garden too. And that's at 700,000. So if you can pull that off, it's got a lot of money to make. But the challenge you can see here is there really seem to be quite a few comparables on the market to be able to show what this property would be worth. And this is where sometimes you tend to struggle. But usually what you'll be doing is you'll be opening up separate tabs for the ones that are comparable, keeping hold of those, so then you've got them aside, ready to be able to add them to a document. But most valuers, when they look at comparable properties and evidence, are looking at what a property is actually sold for. So here, what I like to do is head over to Rightmove and jump in to see what other properties are actually selling for on that street. That way you can see what they've sold for, what they're going through at, and what people might be willing to pay. And this property here can be a great example. So here we've got 2A Mile End Road, and quite next door to it is 2B. And 2B has just gone for £800,000 only 2 years ago. And we come down, we've got number 4, which is a little bit further down the road from it. And then we've got number 20. That doesn't really look much similar, and it's quite a bit bigger. We've got another one here, number 14. That's a few doors down. If you're looking now, you can start to see that these are much older comparables. So whenever you are looking for stuff that's actually sold, you need to have a think, how old are these comparables? I would never consider anything that's more older than probably about 3 years at the moment. And the reason I say 3 years is if you look at house price growth over the last 3 years, it's pretty much been flat. So any properties that have sold in the last 3 years make really good comparables. Whereas if the property market is lifting and increasing in price, then you probably want to be reducing that down to 2 years to see how they've been trading. And you might be thinking, but the properties on market are worth a lot more than what they're now selling for. But a valuer is always going to look, when they're working for a bank or whoever else, they're going to be looking at what is actually sold for. So what I'll do here is I've just jumped into the last 3 years, and you can see a selection of properties there, ones that I've opened. And what I then do is exactly the same as we did with the properties that were on market. We then increase to a 1/4 mile radius, and then we're then trying to look again for other 3-bedroom properties, terrace houses or semi-detached properties that have got a garage or a similar kind of, finished condition. And just looking through here, we've got Mile End Road that's a bit further down, but you can see there's over 3 floors. When you look at other ones, these Leopold Road properties are much, much smaller. You've got this other one, Upton Road. I'll open it up just to have a look to see what 420,000 looks like. You've got these other ones at Beach Bank. They're not quite the same property. And then Claremont, again, there's nowhere near the same kind of property. And we're just trying to have a look through to find another one that's similar. And there's very few of these coming up. But what you can also do sometimes that I found really useful, I'll try and see if there's a case here, is if there isn't a photo available. If you also head over to, for example, with this property here, you could then head over to Zoopla, use the postcode that's there, and then go down through their prices, click into it, and you can usually find any market history for that property from them as well. But I'm going through, and there's very few properties that are the same as the one that Tom's just bought. So what I'll do here is let's just jump into, and we'll have a look at the comparables that we've already opened. This one here, but a 2B, that's the one we've already opened up. But there's very few that are similar. 19, that is a much larger property. Mile End Road, Christchurch, they're very different types of properties down here. So let's just have a look through. So we've got 2B, which was quite literally the property next door. And you can see this is a very similar property from the outside. It's had a large extension put across the back of it. And it's had some real effort and wow put into it to make it look something fantastic. So when I'm looking through this is certainly not what the property looks like at the moment, but it gives you a good idea what you could do to it and what you could achieve if the property was finished. The layout of it is very different. It's got the bay window just sitting off the side here rather than off the front of it. And it's got its kitchen diner that's been extended off the back. So this property has been quite a bit more extended, but it has actually gone through, and you can see at £800,000. So that would suggest that Tom's going to do quite well on this. But let's try and have a look at what other £800,000 properties look like. So again, this property is on Mile End Road. It's only a couple doors down. And it looks absolutely fantastic. They've got a basement, much like the property that we've looked at, and it's got quite a lot of original features inside. It's a huge property, so it's sitting quite a bit bigger than the one that we've been looking at. So that probably means that we'll cut our property value back because this property is rotating through the middle of it. And then if you then look at this one, this is £500,000, and this is, yeah, on Mile End Road as well. And that was completed in 2021. And again, this is in quite nice condition. And this is more, it's got the loft area, which we don't have on our one. So this is, I'm starting to kind of think, well, if this one sold for a fair bit, this one sold for 532,000. It was in 2021. So that's over 3 years ago, but that's probably more indicating what the price of Tom's property is going to be worth. Then when you look at other properties around here, we've got 420,000, but this won't have a garage, but it is a decent sized property. They have used AI, as you can see, to be able to put the units inside it. So again, number 19 here is another big old property that they've done quite a lot of work on. And you can see it's a similar size in the width of the property, but they've done quite a lot of extending. And that has kind of lifted the property to £1 million. So I've got a feeling when we're going through all these, I've been trying to work out exactly a comparable for this property. I've got a feeling 2B next door is going to be the closest to it. But then when you look at number 4 and you look at the properties just around it, you can see that without doing quite a substantial extension, his property is likely to sit around the £500,000 value. But look, let's have a look another way. If there's an easier way to do this, and I say easier, I've been using Property Filter recently to try and find comparables where they really struggle. So it's been quite good because you can actually log in, put the postcode of the property in that you're working on, and to try and pick up and find the comparables for it. It is a monthly subscription to go into this, but I think it's well worth it if you can jump in and get the research for it. So once you're in, you can just put in a postcode. One of the bits I've been doing is using the comparables. You put in the postcode here, and then we're then going to put what type of house we're looking for. So we're going to be looking for, realistically, I'm going to take all of them. We're not needing bungalows, and we're definitely not needing anything else. We want at least 3 bedrooms. We'll put a maximum of 4 in here. And we know it's roughly around about 120 square meters. So I'm going to put a bit of a gap in here, so we can try and find a few more. And now what Property Filter is doing here is it's going to come up with and show us properties that are available and they're on the market for sale at the moment. It'll show us properties that are marked as sold in the area, and then it'll also show properties that have been advertised for sale, but then have been removed from the market where they haven't managed to get a sale agreed. This can be really useful for finding the comparables that you can't see and you cannot find yourself. So we've got one here marked as sold. This is a similar size, 120 square meters. We can just open up and have a look at that. It's a bit of an odd layout, which usually detracts from the value of the property. It's quite wide, but not very deep. They've started at £700,000 and have dropped themselves down the way here. And again, interestingly, this is also it's just on the side of quite a busy road. So it should end up probably being a similar kind of value to what Tom's would end up being. But here you can see they have also converted the loft. One of the interesting bits is if they don't have a garage, then here we go, it's got off-road parking and it has a garage. So that might indicate that with Tom's again, doesn't have the loft conversion, but he's got the garage and the other bit. So his price may creep to 500 to 550,000. But then if we then go back and we can take a look at stuff that's been removed. So this is where it's been marketed for sale and they haven't managed to agree a sale. Again, here you can see we have got 4 Leopold Road, which has gone up a few times by the looks of things with a couple of different agents, and they haven't had much luck in selling it. It's a property by the looks of things that would have needed a bit of refurbishment just to bring it together, but it did have a garage. Here we go. This is a good one just to open up and have a look. And it could also be that this property actually was marked as sold, because you can see it's gone, it was on market, it's been marked as sold, and it's been removed. So it could just be that we're waiting to see that land registry data update. But that was £500,000, and you can see it's quite a decent sized property, very similar in size. And then they've done a rather nice refurbishment on it, and that's exactly what you can see being done to the property we're looking at. They've done some AI staging again as well. So this is all indicating to at least about a £500,000 valuation. But if we go back into where I was looking for these comparables, you can usually get them removed. And then sometimes if there's a property that's also been marked is actually sold and it's gone through, you'll get the comparable there as well. So look, that's exactly what I would do to try and work out the value of a property, to try and get the comparable and get the evidence. What I would be doing is opening up these details of these properties, and I would simply open a Word document and type them all together. And I'm just going to give you an example so you can see exactly what I would do and how I would put my comparables together. So I've got a project that I've been doing at Yarmouth Road, and soon I'm going to do a walkthrough or two to be able to show you around and you can see what I'm doing there. If you've seen me on Instagram, you can see me walking through the site and showing you exactly what's happening down there. But one of the main bits I need to do was to work out how much the flats are going to be worth once they're finished. And one of the bits you need to do is when you've got a valuer or you're looking to use lending and against what the property could be worth rather than what you're paying for it now, you need to get evidence to show what other properties are worth. So here what I did was I collated all the information from those documents, the properties that we found on market and the properties that we found that are sold. I also got the information from the energy performance register to be able to see how big the properties are and how much they are worth in size. So here you can see 4 Ferryman's Court. It's a nice property. I need to explain that it's also near a pub because my property is near a pub. The size of it, how much it sold for, and when it last sold. And I've given photos to be able to show the condition of what that looked like compared to what I'm looking to achieve. So a valuer can really understand what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. The next one was there was another property just around the corner that faced the river. It's been refurbished. It sold at £530,000, and I've given the pound per square metre and per square foot. So to calculate that, you take the price of the property, £530,000, divide that by 120, will then get you that price. And here you can see when it's been refurbished, a fantastic condition, you can see that's where it's achieving those high-end values. And then we've got another property that is literally in the property that neighbours my property. Oh, it's actually, this one's just a bit further down the road, and it's the same size property as the 2 bedrooms that I'm building, and you can see how much those ones have sold for. This other property on School Lane is almost opposite Yarmouth Road, and that's why I was really kind of trying to nail down and find comparables that are suitable. Downside is it's actually a 2-bedroom house rather than a 2-bedroom flat. So I've got photos of the condition of it and the stand of it because it does help kind of indicate roughly how much those properties are going to be worth. And then we've got another one here that faces straight onto the river, similar kind of size to the property that I'm building, that are in the building and being converted. And again, that kind of gives you a real idea of where they steer and how much they're worth. So hopefully you found that really useful, and the exact way I go through and find comparables for property to work out what it's going to be worth when we come to selling it or refinancing it. If you would like to head over to Property Filter, I'll drop a link in the below so you can head over there. It's got a discount code, which is literally my name, Tristan, that'll give you a 14-day free trial and 50% off your first month. So it's pretty much the first month for free if you fancy diving into that. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and leave it a little like. And if you'd like to leave any comments in the below, please do, and subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty of other videos coming up, and I'm also soon going to be doing a whole series on empty properties. So we'll catch you later. Cheers.